Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
All right, this is the perfect time of year, Dave, to talk agronomy.
It is.
So this is one of those things that I'm not very much of an expert on. The finance guy sitting in my office, didn't get involved a lot of this on the farm as a kid. So now it's good to bring experts into the room.
Yeah, normally we have Corey.
Yeah.
But Corey's not here because he's in the field today.
He's too smart.
But he's our agronomy expert.
He already knows all about this. And it just pains me. It just pains me to say that we brought in experts from Nebraska.
Hey.
We did. Can we say go big red? Just for
No.
we can't say that. We can't say
If you're going to say that, we got to edit it out.
then we got to edit it out. All right.
That's right. But they probably drove by a lot of really great-looking Iowa corn on their way over. So they're probably in a good mood. So
Hey, I know lots of people from Nebraska that send their kids to Iowa State, though.
we're already giving a hard time, trying to loosen them up a little bit so we can have fun on this episode. So let's start off first by introducing the experts that we've got in the room. Let's start off with you, Ryan, to begin with. Tell our listeners who you are and what your tie to agriculture is.
So I'm a fourth-generation farmer. That's how I started out. And we started RMS Red Star back in 2004. That's when my wife and I got married. Had Jackson a year later in 2005. And I'd hate to say it, but he's going to Iowa State next year, a Nebraska guy. So, yeah. So fast forward, this is going to be our 20th year in business. So,
Wow, congrats.
Grown the business a lot since then. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to learn more about the business side of it, but let's go around the room here. Kristen, you're next.
Yes.
He alluded to you a little bit.
Right, he
you're,
did.
You're the missus,
I'm the missus.
but there's more to it than that,
Yeah,
correct?
a lot more. Yep.
Go ahead.
So I grew up on a farm too. I actually didn't live too far from Ryan. We just didn't attend the same school. Co-owner of Red Star. It's been a lot of fun. It's crazy to think that we've been doing this for almost 20 seasons now. So I grew up in a pig barn. My dad farmed, was a truck driver. So I've been in ag my whole life as well.
Awesome. So what was the tie to Iowa State that you guys are sending your son to such a reputable school?
I think it was the connections that
Yeah, we have
maybe
ties here. We sell product in Iowa, and we work with some retailers out here. And I guess we liked Iowa. We liked what it did, and it's a different perspective than going to UNL. It's just a different
Sure.
a different approach that he'll get from it.
Yeah.
So.
But Dave, they brought us an Iowa representative to be an expert for this conversation, to just tip the balances in the room to make sure it was still on the right side of things. So Tom, why don't you tell us who you are?
Well, sure. Tom Stanton. I work with Ryan and Kristen, kind of running the Red Star branded business for them. I actually live in Elta, Iowa, which is northwest Iowa, God's country as I like to call it. And I've been working with you guys since, I think, Valentine's Day of 2022 is when the love affair started, I guess you might say.
Wow.
A little bit. So, yeah, it's been a great almost year and a half.
And what was your background to agriculture before that?
So this is my 30th year, so I guess the gray hair gives it away to the old guy in the room. But my 30th year in agriculture, I've spent a lot of time in my past working with manufacturers from crop protection, and then got into the distribution business and the retail business. And about 18, 19 years ago, I got into the specialty fertilizer business and just fell in love with it. And that's kind of where I've spent most of my time the last 17, 18, 19 years. So I actually met Ryan when I was working with a distribution company, and we just had some really good conversations about stuff. I really was impressed with the business and the portfolio that he had put together. And I always told him, I said, well, some January when it's cold and there's nothing going on, I'll come out and spend a day and we'll just, share notes and everything. And he called me one day, middle of December, and I actually had just been let go from a distribution company, and we were talking, and he said, you need to come run my Red Star branded business for me. I said, okay, well, hey, hang on a minute. I'm taking 3 months. I'm not doing anything. And we met 3-4 times, and they're just amazing people, and they've got an amazing business. And so I'm very fortunate to be part of it.
Well, Tanner, so for our listeners, we know who Ryan, Kristen, and Tom are, but I'm still confused yet and don't know wholeheartedly what is Red Star. We've tipped the scale a little bit towards fertilizer, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. Ryan, give me your elevator pitch, just a short. What is Red Star? You said it was a different name before, and then you rebranded transition. So tell me what you were before, and if it's different or if it's just a different name, and what do you do? What is Red Star? Other than a cool logo. You guys don't even see it, but their shirts, man, they're decked out.
They can go over to YouTube and look at it. You got to check out the logo.
You do.
So we started with RMS, which was Ryan Mullenhoff Seeds back then. We started off in a 10 by 10 office with a bathroom in it, no windows, couldn't get the customer out of there. He was locked in, he was buying. So did that until 2010. That's when we took on a fertilizer lineup, and that's when we started hiring employees, grew it from there. And later on, that was RMS because we were selling sales at that point. And then later on, we didn't like what we were getting from that manufacturer. We didn't like the quality, so we started a Red Star fertilizer, and that's when we started our own product line of fertilizers to keep the quality that we wanted, to give our customers options and just keep a good value to them.
So
So this is your own branded fertilizer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This isn't something off the shelf.
No.
This is your. Wow.
Start to finish, we adjuvants, seed treatments, fertilizers, foliars, stabilizers, biologicals, everything.
It's just like every other entrepreneurial startup, Tanner. They saw a need in the market, is what I'm hearing.
Wanted
If
to make it
you were
better.
farming, and like BAFS used to have a slogan.
Yeah.
That says we don't make things we use, we make the things you use better. Sounds like you guys had that. You wanted to do it better, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And when we first started off with fertilizer, there was nobody that had starter. I started off putting planters together, putting fertilizer systems on. Then we put our first UAN tank up. Everybody was in hydrous back then, so we moved. Now everybody's selling UAN. So it's just, I'd like to think that we're forward thinking, that we're trying to do stuff before it's actually there. So I love technology.
Yeah, so as we got ready to set up this conversation, we try to hit an agronomy talk every spring, early summer with our listeners, so that way they can have the latest information. And for someone that's so forward-thinking like yourselves, we figured that'd be a perfect time to have you come on over and kind of give us some of the great side of things. So, Kristen, as you guys were building this company, obviously you worked together as a team and kind of pushed to really make this go forward. What was the passion behind creating a branded fertilizer? Like I said, we think you're trying to make something better.
Right.
But why work that hard to go on this path?
That's a good question. Why do we work that hard? No, I'm kidding. I just think that we had so many issues with like the bigger companies or corporations, and then when something happens, it's not as a big deal because there's so many people it can fall upon. So I think the passion was having control of the quality. And we also had like trucking issues and other things. And I just think that Ryan has a lot of confidence, and he knew that he could do it. And so we just wanted to be able to have control over the products. Because it makes a difference when if there's a problem, it's going to come right down to Ryan or myself.
And I guess when we built the product line, we're selling products that the customer needs. Not what we need to sell, but what they need and what works on their farm. We go by soil tests, tissue tests, and you have to have a balanced approach.
So our portfolio is a lot smaller in some regards than the larger companies where there's so many products. We fill where there's a need, and Tom can tell you all about that. But yeah, I think the passion was just behind wanting to do something that wasn't being done in our area at the time. Now we're in many states, but back then it was just our little town of Lee, Nebraska.
And what states are you in now?
I think we're in 9 or 10. We just talked about it before we got here.
So 9 or 10
So I'm going to let
states.
Tom.
Midwest.
Midwest?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we maybe jump over that Illini state to Indiana, but it's somewhere 9 or
So
10.
you guys are primarily corn and beans type product. You're not getting into cotton or wheat or...
No,
or
we do a little bit of flowers, a little bit of sorghum, stuff like that. But
Okay.
yeah, primarily corn and beans.
That's kind of neat. So, Tom, since you've joined, where's been the biggest area of growth? What are a lot of producers wanting to use? What's powering Red Star forward?
That's a really good question, Tanner. And we spend a lot of time talking about that, and Ryan just briefly touched on it. But the approach, every farm is different. Every field is unique. And so many times, big companies, cooperatives, whatever, they sort of get locked into, I get a soil test, it tells me I need to put this on it, that's what I do, boom. Where we take a different approach. We sit down with our customer. We ask them a lot of questions. How do you fertilize? Why do you fertilize like that? Are you willing to change anything about the way you fertilize? And really, what's their goal? And it depends. You might have a customer that's been farming for 40 years, and he's got 3-4 more years left. He's got a different goal than a young guy that's coming in that's 26, 7 years old. Figuring out how do I get to 5,000 acres from where I'm at today. He's got a different goal. And so you can't have a cookie cutter approach in the fertilizer business. And so many times, unfortunately, in our industry, that's what it's like. And that's one of the things that drew me to Ryan was he took a different approach to it. And his approach actually matched my approach that I had used for years. And so, that's what makes us different. It's not just all about fertilizer, or it's just not all about biologicals, or it's just not all about foliars. You've got to have a balance of everything to make sure it's right for that farm. But most importantly, if it doesn't fit the farmer's goals, then we're probably not doing the right thing.
So how much agronomy background do you guys have to have? Like, I'm thinking, on a farm that we farm, love to put fertilizer on, but I just get a soil sample and trust the guy that tells me that I need this on there. Like, I'm assuming you guys have some type of agronomy background, or agronomist that works with you that tell you that, like, if we're custom making for a farmer's farm, I assume.
Yes, yeah, we've got a lot of different products, and in fact, we can take all of our products and blend them. But we've got some situations this year where even a couple of our Red Star branded products didn't fit. We just built a product that actually was made for that farm in that situation, based on what the soil test was telling us and what the biological tests were telling us. So you got to be willing to change and to do things differently. And Ryan, if you bring something to him and say, hey, can you do this? Yep, boom. He finds solutions really quick and really easily. So, but that's really what we're about, is making sure we're doing the right thing for our customer. Because if you're not doing the right thing for your customer, then you won't have any customers. Mm-hmm. So
let's come back to more about Red Star here in a little bit. Let's start talking about the customers. So some of your customers are probably listeners of ours, and what did they face as challenges this planting season? What have we seen this spring so far? And then after we talk about that, I want to get into, if the season's not over yet, what are we going to see coming forward? So first of all, what did we see during planting? How did things go off in your territory?
So in Nebraska, we're used to being super dry, but this year was driest I've ever seen it. There was a lot of people that waited for planting anything, and because we just got rain this last weekend, 1.5 inches finally. Now we know what Iowa feels like. So, but we have corn that's not even planted yet. We have corn that's just going to be spiking. We got beans that are rowing, and there's beans that are not even planted yet. Sure. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be busy this spring.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at it. Even in Nebraska, there were places you go east of us, 25, 30 miles east of Lee. They had plenty of rain. Man, they could plant their corn on time, make sure it's in consistent moisture, where around Lee it was a little bit of a struggle. Can we get consistent moisture with our corn at 2.5 or 2 3/4 inches deep? And so we had a lot of folks that actually switched, guys, and they actually planted their beans first this year because of that. And now with the rain, I think we're going to probably have a pretty strong finish on corn. But, I was much the same way. I live in Elta. I track my rainfall. I got a farm west of Elta, 5 miles, and I got one over by Storm Lake, and there's almost an inch difference there on a yearly basis. And it's wild how, spotty the rains have been. Mm-hmm. And that's really, I think, had a big effect on growers this year and when and where they've planted. So.
Well, even our other podcast host yesterday posted hail. It's golf ball size, but at my house we didn't have anything. So it's very conditional. I would assume in Nebraska, how much of your fertilizer goes through pivots?
Depends on where you are, but a lot of it does where there is water.
Okay.
So there, like where we actually are, there's no water. You go 5 miles south, there's all the water in the world.
Yep.
So, but we still got good dirt.
Yeah, that's interesting because to look at the perspective is we had farmers waiting to plant because of soil temperatures, how cool we were in certain areas, but then there was northern farms further north, different longitude, that kind of went anyway because they had some nice warm weather. So as far as everything is put together, it's been a very interesting planting season. Of course, we go to our southern listeners. You talk Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and they can't buy rain. Farmer Dan 97 got his first rain in, what did he say, 54 weeks or something like
been a
that?
while.
Wow.
So it had been a long time for their farm. So planting has had some challenges, right? Now that's going to cause a little bit of stress potentially on some of the crops that get put in the ground. What are you seeing in your area? What are you predicting for some in-season challenges?
Well, it's Nebraska, so drought is always a concern, but uneven emergence is going to go through the whole year. We did some trials this year. We planted every Wednesday for 4 Wednesdays in a row, and we did cold sat testing on all the hybrids, and you should see the differences on the emergence this year. Every farmer should be checking their seed, cold sat testing.
And we've actually talked about that, Dave. We had it's been almost 2 years. Jim Groper on the podcast that talked about the cold germ testing to make sure no matter whose seed it was to get that checked up. That's good. What do you think?
Jim Groper's one of my mentors, believe it or not, from way back when. And he's right. Jim has worked with that for a long time. And the seed quality is a huge, huge issue. And we did a lot of testing this year of all of our hybrids. And we found some shocking news on some of the hybrids. And it's like, you know what, we're just not going to plant that one. It's just not worth giving our customers something that we know more than likely is going to cause an issue. And so we just said, you know what, we're gonna switch to something else that's got a much better cold sat score. That way they're going to be successful. So we want to plan for success, not for failure.
So if one of our listeners had uneven emergence, what can we do in season to help maximize the potential of that field? Or are they just done?
Well, that's a really great question, Tanner. It really depends. If that corn comes up and it's only a day behind, it's not near as bad. But you start talking about 2 days and 3 days behind, and I do this on my farm every year. I go out and I track that with flags, and wow, where it's 2-3 days behind, and you go out there in August, September, and you walk that same field, you're gonna go from an ear that's 16, 18 around and 35 to 45 long to it's 12 around and about 20 long, and it's just because when it gets up late, it becomes more of a weed than it does a producing ear. And so that's also one of the reasons why we do at Red Star and Red Star Fertilizer and Red Star branded, is making sure we've got the best possible quality fertilizer that we go in furrow that actually is going to help even that corn up, even in our colder, wetter conditions that we have. We put some good fertility there. We do a lot of things with different carbon-based products and biologicals to try to make sure that crop can come up at the same time, even with the cold temperature thing we talked about this year just being so variable, and also with the moisture. So,
yeah, that's interesting. So what else, Kristen? If people are coming in and they're talking to you guys, what are you hearing from your customers that they are nervous about during this growing season?
Well, luckily, I'm in marketing,
Uh-huh.
so I don't have to hear about any of their issues.
Yes.
I just
Well,
get
that's
to make
good.
us look good.
Hey,
So,
that's
yeah.
fine.
Oh,
And
that's fine.
they can give you the message to
There you
put out
go.
to
I
everybody.
Do you
can
work
do
on
that.
Do you work on any of the supply side as well? You guys got me wondering when we're talking what could happen this year. I'm still seeing war with Ukraine, and every time I think Ukraine, I think fertilizer costs, even closed borders up to Canada. Where's everything come from? Have you guys had issues with supply chain? I mean, maybe even somebody on your marketing side is commenting on your Facebook page, "Hey, what's our costs what's going to happen with cost? Is this going to go up?" I think that's what a lot of guys are worried about. Of course, I sell farmland, and everybody's just worried about their input costs. Markets are emotion, and the emotion is a little bit getting unstable, I guess.
So last year was the big year for uncertainty in the marketplace, I would say. Right now, commodities look like they're good to buy for the short term. Long term, that's anybody's guess, I guess, as far as I'm.
But you guys didn't battle any shortages this spring, getting your clients what you needed to?
No, we were good this year.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I suppose that's one part of it being, I mean, that's a value add that I give is, I say small company. I'm a small company, but it's when your name is on the sign, Tanner, their name's on the sign in this company. So
Right.
if you have a problem, that's who you call, as you end up calling the owner of the company on that. Do you get more relationships with that because people know that, hey, they're going to treat me right because it's relationships.
I would like to
hope
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is to build those relationships. That comes way before the sale, always. Yeah, for sure. And I would hope that we would give them a better experience being a smaller company.
Right.
We should do that.
Absolutely. So, Tom, as I read a lot of headlines and look towards, of course, everybody wants to scare you in a headline, so you read their article. But does it feel like this season the stakes are higher than they've ever been? And I'm not just talking because of the value of the crop and the turning point of the profitability of farms, but more in defense issues for pests, weeds, any type of a resistant negating factor that we're going to see here try to tag at our yield potential. Does it just feel like that, or is it true? Are we seeing a lot more pressure?
I think we are. I think if we look back to last fall, fertilizer prices were extremely high, anhydrous, P&K, even UAN was extremely high. And then all of a sudden, February 1st-ish, all of a sudden we started seeing, we're getting calls, hey, can you take this, can you take this? And the price was coming down $20 a ton, $30 a ton, $50 a ton. And so the guys like me that put all the expensive fertilizer on last fall in Alta, Iowa, I've got a higher break even. And so now, do I cut back or do I go all in because I got to raise as many bushels as I can? And so, I think some of the things that we have to watch, insects in furrow. I think we've sold a lot more insecticide in furrow with our starters this year than what we've seen in the past. And I think from a biological standpoint, there's a lot of talk about biology. I know down at the farm show here in Des Moines this winter, I was walking around and I'm not even sure how many companies I counted that were, hey, we've got a biological to sell. And so a lot of growers are calling us, biological, what do we do? What should we do? And so we've got a few different companies we work with on that. But yes, I think we need to really focus on some of those things like that to make sure we're controlling those pests in furrow that can hurt us. If quality stand equals quality yield, learned that a long time ago. So in furrow pests, making sure I got the best quality seed, those are going to be things that help, catapult us to that top yield, and then we can just, hopefully manage the things during the season to make sure we help reach some of those goals on our yields.
Right. So now we're in season, because when this episode airs, we're going to have probably 70 to 80% of our listeners have the crop in the ground. Seed decisions made. Hopefully we put some preventative treatment, whether it's going to help us get it popped up, even emergence, or we're going to protect it from those insects, just everything that's applied. What do you think now? What are some challenges? Was it last year? My years all run together. Was it last year that late season fungicide was hard to get a hold of, or maybe name brand was?
Yes.
What do you guys see coming down now? It's in the ground. It's popped up. What's it look like?
So fungicides are still, the manufacturing ones are still a little difficult to get. I think that'll work itself out as the season goes on. Weather related, that's going to be a big thing, whether it's going to be amino acids, whether it's going to be insecticides, fungicides, foliars, tissue testing. I can't stress that enough. Follow your crop along, see what it needs, and don't just do one, do multiple ones throughout the year. See how it's tracking.
Yeah. and I think if we get some of this uneven corn emergence, Tanner, that you're referring to, there's some things we can do there. We can come in at V2, V3, and we can work with some different carbon products, some different amino acid products, even some synthetic hormones that we can come in and try to help some of those plants that are behind try to catch up. So that can be done to do that, but it's going to require that grower saying, hey, am I willing to spend an extra 12, 15 bucks an acre plus application to do that? And believe it or not, if you ever go out into your fields in the fall and walk and you see the numbing ears, you can fix some of that early. And, you look at our price of corn today, it only ends up being 2 to 3 bushels, and you can cover that. So those are things that we're watching for. Over the next 30 days, a lot of our agronomy team is going to be in the field. We're going to be flagging corn hybrids. We're going to be looking for pests, just checking overall emergence and making recommendations based off of that. And then also based on, hey, what you put down fertility program. If they got to come in with the side dress, we might want to hit it early. So the next 30 days, we're going to be doing an awful lot of those types of things.
So you talked about tissue samples. Are you counting on, do you want the farmer to do that and learn how to do this? And you talked about guys in the field, or do you guys have a team that's helping the farmer in the field make those decisions?
We have a whole program called Red Star RX and
Red Star RX.
Red Star RX.
Okay,
is
so
correct.
That's good branding.
If I'm farm dumb, then you got a team that can help me through the whole.
Absolutely.
We have an amazing team of agronomists, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So what you'll get is 3 visits. So you'll get a soil test and a tissue test, and then you'll get 2 following tissue tests after that throughout the year. So I can't remember the stages that it is, but I think it's V3, V7, and R1, I think. So.
And you'll map that out. You'll be able to then provide recommendations based upon the results that you're getting.
Yep.
Okay. And then do you guys use that to set up the next growing year based upon the performance and maybe removal?
So we use that, and then we have our red acre plots. So we have about 800 to 1,000 acres that we use just for testing.
Oh, wow.
In-furrows, foliars, stabilizers, seed quality.
And is that
trials.
all different kinds of ground, from sandy soil to clay soil to a little bit of everything?
It is Nebraska, but yes, we are the most variable soils there is.
See, even Nebraskans caveat it with it is Nebraska.
There you go. There it is.
So, but
We
irrigated.
love everybody
yep.
in Nebraska.
So if I'm, so I haven't heard of Red Star until today. So if I'm someone that's a listener on the pod right now, and they're saying, Red Star, let's Google them. Let's find out why don't I go to my local co-op? What do I get with you that I don't get at the local co-op?
Well, first off, you're going to get red fertilizer. So,
Okay.
but you're going to get a product line and knowledge.
Is it
what
really
you're,
red?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's red.
But you're going to get a product line that fits your soil, not just something that's broad spectrum for everybody. It's going to fit what you need. So,
Okay.
And then our knowledge, we have some of the best agronomists, hands down, in the Midwest that I'd put up against anybody. So,
Gotcha.
God, I got questions. I got so many questions. This isn't going to flow very well because I keep thinking of things that I should have asked earlier. But your starter fertilizer, it's low sulfur, correct?
Low salt.
Low salt. Okay.
Yes.
Glad you corrected me there. And that is specifically due to the research that you guys have put together in your plots, determined that that's a more effective route?
We
or-
have all sorts of different ones. We have, like you said, the low salt ones. We have a no starter. So completely
no
different approach.
Start.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
That's got to be a marketing thing.
NSS, yep. But completely different approach. It has PGRs, amino acids, has all the high yield features that you want, but it's a simple to use product.
See, that's a question I should have asked earlier. Now a question that I should have asked in the middle when you started talking about biologicals. Mm-hmm. How many of your clients are you seeing use them? Or is everybody just asking about them?
That's I don't know if I can answer that, but it's.
Because I feel like our listeners ask more about it, but I don't feel like there's a lot that put it to use.
I'd agree with that.
Well, I think if you don't have a good, solid fertility program, I don't think your biologicals or any of your other stuff is the right place for you. You have to have a good base to start. And once you get that, then absolutely. The rest of it falls into place, and then it's, a great story.
Do you have? We're all about profit. Okay, farm for profit. So I'm thinking, okay. So what I heard was that we're going to use Red Star because possibly better customer service, or most undoubtedly with a small company, and we're going to have really good agronomists. I'm going to make the argument there's good agronomists everywhere, and this is maybe the same sales pitch I might get from everybody is that, hey, we're good, use us because of this. I need more. Give me something more. What else? What is? Am I going to be more profitable? Does red fertilizer help me more than blue or green or whatever color?
Good question. Fair question.
I mean, if you can make me more money, I'm in.
Do we want to
Every one of my listeners is too. If you can make me more money, and it's you hinted on, some companies are just saying buy the biologic, and then others are saying nope. Like you just said, you got to have a good start with, and we need to map this program out before we recommend this out there. But there's lots of companies that come out, do a soil sample every year. Here's what it looks like, et cetera, et cetera. Give me more.
Well, we do have a saying at Red Star that says, what is it? Our red will make you more green. So there you go. It's a proven fact.
That's a proven
From
fact.
the
It's
marketing
a proven
gal.
fact.
It's a proven
Our
fact.
red will make you more green.
There you go.
No, that's a really great question. And, our focus, again, we talked about understanding what the grower's goal is, right, and understanding each farm.
Yeah.
And we also do a lot of work. Dr. Fred Bilo at the University of Illinois has done a lot of great work the last 20 years on understanding the nutrient demand curves, and I'm really shocked at how few people use them. And so what we're doing is we're trying to bring everything on the soil test, and then we do all the biological testing and the Haney tests and all that. And we're trying to then bring it in and saying, okay, the nutrient demand curves. If you've got a goal like mine, my goal is to raise 350 bushel corn in Cherokee County and Beebe County, Iowa. Hope I get there someday. I have to then build my program and my process, but I also need to understand every bit along the way. When does my crop need the nitrogen? When does it need the potassium? When does it need the boron? When does it need the zinc? And so we then take a lot of that information that Fred has done over the years. We also insert that into our program and say, okay, based on your yield goal and what you want, based on this farm, we need to make sure that we've got those products, that fertilizer on that farm, at least 2 to 3 weeks ahead of when that crop's going to need it. And so we do an awful lot of that. Ryan's done a great job technology-wise. He's really good on technology. And so we've built that into our system and into our program approach. And it just seems to work, whether it's dry land or whether it's irrigated. It just seems to work, and our customers are getting, for the most part, higher yields.
So something I've been talking about every podcast over the past few years is data. And you guys are making decisions based on data there. You talked about technology that Ryan has. Are you guys keeping this data anyway for the farmer that helps them make decisions, helps you help them make decisions in the future, or something that is there that you're working through?
Yeah, we have our customer files, and then we use we have our own in-house program that we plug in your soil test, we plug in your tissue tests, and then we have our own algorithms that spit out what we need to do,
recipes,
what perfect looks like, what your budget looks like, and then the happy medium somewhere in between there. So, and what you said before of what the one thing that sets us apart is, I don't think there's just one thing. There's multiple things that we have. It's not just one product. It's
a whole
maybe
package.
a combination of 3 of them that are great. So, yeah.
I like that. That was a good question, Dave. Now, here I am going to ask a bunch of shallow questions.
All right.
Because I just want to know. So,
Do you guys fight?
it's on the list.
Oh, is that on the list?
It's coming. Yeah.
Okay.
It's coming. We're going to dive deep into that one. That's not a shallow question. So we've got a couple of requests from listeners about doing episodes on cover crops. How many of your clients are using cover crops? Percentage.
50?
Oh, it is half. You think it is about half?
Okay.
I'd say.
Tom?
Yeah, in Nebraska for sure, it's pretty large. I think as you come across the border to the east, to God's country, I don't think it's quite that high. I think it should be. But I don't
carbon
think we're
credits
there yet.
for you.
They're waiting. The rule of
they're waiting,
additionality.
exactly.
We do a lot of strip till cover crops.
Yep.
There's not a lot of conventional till. It's no-till, strip-till, that stuff. So
No accidents on the interstates
I
because of
think
dust storms.
I'm pretty sure what they say Nebraska always does before Iowa's 10 years later. Is that the way it is?
Is that the way it is?
Oh, he's getting more comfortable. See this? Well, that's good. Maybe we do need to look into a little deeper and put an episode together on cover crops. So thanks for that insight there. Another one that I wanted to dive into is, where do you think input prices are going next year? Should we be booking our fertilizer now? Or is it maybe things will still supply? I mean, you don't have to be right. People just wanted to.
You know, on the nitrogen side, I would say that sit tight and wait. The way that one looks, the phosphate, that's a little more of a global thing. Tom might be able to share with that one, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends what happens. You know, we seem to be so reactive to, if this happens in Europe, boom, we get a big spike on everything. So I just think we're at a really sensitive time globally and in the markets. And right now, everything over the wintertime has really come down pretty rapidly, especially on the crop protection stuff. We've seen a lot of price declines, glyphosates, glufosinate, those types of things. You know, potash has really come down big time. Nitrogen's come down big time. Phosphate's gone up. Why? Well, I think it's because phosphate's one of those things that globally, you know, we have a finite supply for the next 50, 60 years, and then we got to figure something else out. So everything's kind of come down, but again, tell me what one thing's going to happen either in the Ukraine or in Europe or, you know, China that could all of a sudden send that whole supply chain back into panic, and then all of a sudden we'll see 40, 50% price increases.
Right. So before we get to wrapping up with the nuts and bolts behind Ryan and Kristen, I want one more piece, and Kristen, you get to participate in this as well. We're going to sit here mid-May. Listeners are going to start to pick up this episode. What's one thing you think would be and generate the most value on their farm for them to try? So as you have a listener now taking this information in, still hanging out with us 30 minutes into the show, they're wanting to do something in season this year that they can learn from. What do you think is the best bang for their buck?
Are we talking product?
Anything.
Anything.
It could be create your own Facebook page for your farm. Something to promote. Something new and different to do in season.
If I had to pick one for in season, I'd go with Novastar. It's our amino acids, polypeptides are in there, and a drone application of that that's the best. Okay,
so for someone who doesn't understand what you just said, what are we doing with that? What's that going to do to my crop?
So Novastar is an amino acid that also has peptides in it. And, of course, peptides are amino acids that are lined up before it becomes a protein. And so what it's doing is it's all plant-based. So the old saying that, you know, like dissolves like, when you put it on that plant, the plant recognizes the fact that it comes from plant material, and so it opens up the stomates, it lets it in. And when the plant gets it in its system, it has tremendous abiotic stress. You know, when I was a kid, you know, if you had a headache or you weren't feeling good, take an aspirin. Well, that's kind of what Novastar is it's sort of kind of like an aspirin for your crop. It just eases that crop. It lowers the abiotic stress, and abiotic stress would be moisture stress, cold stress, hot stress. And it just helps that plant to be healthier, to be able to regulate itself more efficiently, help its own DNA, RNA, hormones function at the maximum ability. And it's actually some technology that's come out of Europe. Europe's used it for 20 years. I think we've been working with it here in the U.S. since 2014, 15, and it just works. It just works is all I can say about it. You can put it on in June, or you can put it on July, August. It just seems to work.
That was the one product last year that, whether we put it on in furrow, foliar, through the pivot, through the drone, it responded every single time. So, and last year we were in major drought, and I don't even want to tell you the numbers. It was stupid how high they were, what it did to the plant.
Can Dave put this on his pasture?
That's a really great question. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it would work, but We've never done that. Write that down. We gotta put that in the.
Well, I think you got a
Radar
trial right here.
Express.
Or it's cattle guys. Cattle guys, you know.
It's important.
Gotta
We've
put
got a
that
lot of
down.
cattle guys in Nebraska,
Yeah.
so it's something we should look at.
Good.
Definitely.
All right. So I'm gonna let you off easy on that question, but
Well,
you.
I was going to choose Novastar too.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, just because I've marketed it so much.
There you
So
go.
it was in our research.
Sounds like a pretty easy marketing job. It just works.
It does.
Novastar.
Right. Novastar.
Red fertilizer and Novastar.
And I actually helped put in that. And it was in our research and development plot, and I was there. I helped with that. So,
Nice.
yeah.
We also have listeners, one that I'm not going to name, but if she listens, she knows exactly who she is, that likes learning about what it's like to grow a family business. It's not easy,
It's not.
but those that get there make it look easy. Dave's one of those. We know, being this close to Dave, that him and his wife work really hard on this company. But to others, it looks like, oh, wow, they grew really fast. What's the secret? 19 years? I have in my notes. You guys have been working together for 19
Yeah.
years?
We'll celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary on Valentine's Day next year.
So not only did you make it 20 years in marriage, but you work together every day.
Every
There's-
single day. Every day. We love it. So,
I'm not going to say there's not challenges, but there is.
Yeah.
But,
it's
you know,
a lot of work.
yeah, you go to work with your best friend and you go home together. So
It does
work
go by
isn't
fast.
really work when you enjoy what you do. So
what's your advice to someone who's wanting to either started their business or is trying to grow their business and manage a family life? How do you get it done?
Well, for
patience is, I'm an extremely patient person, but knowing how to separate that and knowing when to shut off and when to keep on, that's pretty important.
in the
So,
beginning days when our business was much smaller, we never brought work back home. But now that the company has gotten bigger, sometimes we do. But honestly, and I'm not lying, like we're like best friends. So we don't fight. I may give him my opinion here or there. But honestly, it's been pretty easy. I would say the most difficult year has been this year because again, it's been our largest year. The advice I would give is, I don't know. Like, it is a lot of work. It's so much work.
I don't think
but
there's a playbook.
I don't think there is. Confidence. Confidence in yourself, I think, because sometimes you'll question, like, what you're doing. And so.
What do you think the biggest challenge? I'll go challenge first.
Okay.
Challenge is since you started your company. So you got 20 years in company, just about. And so in that 20 years, what was the hardest thing that we had to do?
I think, well,
There's no, when we started out, I never expected that we'd have, 40 employees and be in this many states. And so there's no playbook, there's no guideline to do what we did. And
this was supposed to be like a short-term thing. So this opportunity was brought to us back 19 years ago. Ryan was an owner of a trucking company. I was just helping on the family farm. And then all of a sudden here this thing comes around. I was pregnant. We'd just gotten married. And so Ryan was incredibly quiet and shy back then. In fact, he would circle the basement before he would even make a sales call. He was so afraid.
go through the phone book, I'd pick a name, 10 names that I was calling that night.
Yeah.
I'd lock myself in that room and I'd just walk in circles.
And how we made the decision to actually say yes to that, I'm not sure. It was the greatest thing we ever said yes to. But yeah, I lost where I was at. Like, what were we even talking about?
Just what the most challenging thing was,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to pivot.
So I'm gonna.
Sounds like getting started.
Well,
starting and not knowing a direction, and every time we expanded, it was because of a need. It wasn't because of.
I would say-
it wasn't because of the dollar. It wasn't because of
Yeah.
that. It was what our customers needed.
Yeah, I
So.
think, in my opinion, the biggest challenge has always been like keeping ahead of the growth. Just like making sure you have the right facilities, big enough facilities. Making sure you have enough employees. It's changed so much. Years 1 to 5, it was just Ryan and I. We did it all. After 5, we got the starter fertilizer. The whole company changed. It was a completely different company.
Yeah.
And
Fear of the unknown is huge. So
I would say the same thing. That's good advice. Is listen to what your customers need. because I would say we had initial growth when Corey joined, but we had more growth when we started doing the episodes that listeners requested for.
Oh, there you go.
You listen to what they wanted to hear, what they
Right.
needed to learn about, and it grew so much faster. So I could see
Right.
that's probably a good piece of advice to those trying to grow a business is it can't be about you.
Almost do it backwards. Like,
Yeah.
wait till you hear what the need. Well, not like all the time, but yeah.
So you have gone from like we started in a basement and went. You guys sound like the same and move forward. What's the biggest accomplishment? Now you have buildings. Now you have your own line, manufacturing, etc. Employees, HR. I'm guessing.
It's me. I'm HR too.
Yeah. What's the biggest
Oh, I
accomplishment?
thought she was the biggest accomplishment. That
No,
was
it was me. I'm the biggest accomplishment.
I think still having a great marriage is a big accomplishment.
It's huge.
It's huge, and still being so close. For me, my biggest accomplishment is definitely Red Star branded, because we started with Red Star Fertilizer, and then kind of welcomed Tom to the team, and those two together kind of built that, and I'm very proud of that because it's our own products. It's our name, so that's what I would say.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I did. When you were talking about starting in the basement, Dave, I did remember a meme that I saw that all great companies start in the garage.
Yeah.
So we should have started recording in your garage.
Apparently,
There you
instead of the
go.
basement.
Yeah, same thing. You should have
Mine
started
was-
your sales calls from the garage.
Technically, mine was the garage. It was a breezeway attached to the garage that was a garage.
There you go. You're destined for success. So as we get ready to wrap up, what's the future look like? If our listeners can do something to help Red Star out, they need to know where you want to go. So what's that look like?
Well, first they need to go to redstarne.com.
Okay, we can send them there.
They got to go there.
Even if they're from Iowa?
Even if they're, I love Iowa.
You need a
They
Red
can go to
Star.
redstarfertilizer.com too.
They need a
That
Red
works.
Star.
Just so they don't have to
IA.
DM.
Marketing, you need a Red Star IA.
I do.
Yeah. That's you got check the
Quick,
pasture.
buy that
That's
domain.
nice.
Go,
Yeah.
Daddy.
All right, so where are you headed?
Okay, so this year we're in the process of building a new facility for manufacturing and distribution, another building. So that's going to be able to make our growth more successful and a larger footprint. So we are in Minnesota, and then there's 3 locations in Nebraska that we own. So expanding to more dealers is probably our focus. So, and we can offer the full product line to a dealer from seed all the way to chem, fertilizer, the whole thing, agronomy. So, yeah,
Do you have to be an agronomist to be a dealer?
I wasn't.
Okay.
So
I was thinking to get out there to new markets. What are you doing to grow your company for the people that listen for the company growth side? What are you doing to get to new markets? Like, okay, here we're going to go to Minnesota, but we're the outsider. Like, do you have to join with the team, someone there, or how's that work?
Yeah, I think you want to find, this whole business is about people. The best people, cream always rises to the top. So if you can go into an area and you can find a really good person, we will help them develop on the agronomy side. I mean, we've got some really good agronomists. We'll have them come spend about 3 weeks with John, and then they will be like expert level. But if we can go into an area and find a person, and generally speaking, a lot of those folks are just sort of frustrated with the traditional market system that we currently operate within in this country. And they're like, boy, there's more out there. We can find some really good people. We plug them into the system. The big thing is we listen to them. What are their needs for their customers? And then really sort of tailor that program and approach to them in that area, because every area is so different. Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, different soils, different crops, different climates. And so, but it all starts with people. And so we've been blessed to be able to identify some really good people and bring them into Red Star and Red Star branded. And it's, it's worked so good so far. And, I guess, we'll see what the future holds with it.
So what are we missing about Red Star? What else?
Marketing.
Thank you.
What did
Amazing.
we miss?
That the color red is actually written in white.
I think our red makes you green. That's
Yeah,
something we talk about a lot.
I
I
like
do
it.
say that.
All right, now the toughest part of the show is to not pay attention to me while I summarize and think about the answer to our payoff question. So we ask the same question over a period of time so we can put a summary episode together and really kind of cap off a conglomerate of answers. So the question that you guys get to noodle over is, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself or others at 18? And the best part about it is, Dave, we've got an 18-year-old-ish. Okay? Oh, yeah, we got the head nod. Sitting in the room. So this might be real life instant advice, but what advice would you give to yourself at 18? We thought about saying beginning farmers, but we've got listeners that don't farm. So it can be anything across there. But I'm going to try and summarize, Dave. You give the challenge, and then we'll come back to you guys for your answer there. So we've got the two best friends that every farm needs to have sitting here in studio, plus Tom, coming from Red Star. These guys are working hard to put their branded program of products together to help farms achieve higher levels of profitability. We focused in the middle of this episode about what we're going to see for challenges this year on the agronomy side. So we talked a little bit how planting got off to an uneven start, whether it was certain areas getting started before others, all the way down to even uneven emergence in a field. So we wanted to see if there's something we can do to help with uneven emergence once we get into it. And it sounds like there's in-season solutions. So make sure you reach out to your agronomist if you've got one that you're working with, or the folks at Red Star to fix that problem if you're looking at it. If you didn't get some in-furrow solutions taken care of while you were planting, and you are concerned about pest pressure, or we end up continuing to be wet and muggy, and we want to look at a fungicide option, you can still get those products. It seems like supply isn't going to be that big of an issue for us coming this year, as long as you plan ahead. We can't just call you on Tuesday if we want to use it on Wednesday, but want to make sure that we get that put together. We did learn, Dave, that if you want to try something new this year, give Navistar a try. Now, I don't know anything about Navistar.
Novistar.
Oh, good. See, look at that. I didn't know anything about Navistar either, but it doesn't exist.
I didn't know it was pronounced Navistar. It's pronounced Novistar, just in case you weren't corrected.
Novistar. Give it a try, because it's something that we could see immediate returns on if there is something you want to try new and in season this time. We also learned that if you're looking for another opportunity this year, reach out to the folks at Red Star. You might have a dealer network expansion opportunity. If not, you can learn more about what they've got going on. But ultimately, we know that every growing season is different, and the biggest thing that we picked out of this is to have a trusted advisor. And if you have a team that's working in season to take tissue samples, make sure you get the data so that way you can track the progress in your field and make sure that the recommendations that your agronomists are providing actually make sense for your field. If you have anything that you want to learn about Red Star, go to redstarne.com. They didn't necessarily start in the garage, but they started close to the garage, so they're bound to be successful.
Bound to be.
And they're looking forward to growing in the future. So a lot of cool things there. Pay attention to what input costs look like for next year. You always want to watch that to take advantage of opportunities. You also want that team member on your side to, if an opportunity presents itself, you know when it is to pull the trigger. How'd I do, Dave?
Good.
All right. What's your challenge?
So, are we going to get their answer to this first, or do you want to?
Oh, you challenge them first.
All right,
then
I'm
we'll get the answer.
going to challenge. So I'm going to challenge our listeners to do exactly what Ryan said when you asked, what is something we can do in season? We've planted, we're there. What can we do? We talked about data. So it was go out there and be good land stewards. Check your crops. I think everybody's doing it anyway, but we can't just put the sign in the yard and hope it sells, right? So we need to do more than that. Let's get out and be good land stewards and make sure we're visualizing our crops, checking them, and then make the right decisions to assist the crops for more success.
Be active. Exactly. Okay, guys. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself or others at 18? And Tom goes first.
Wow, that's a long time ago being 18. Don't be afraid to move, and don't be afraid to try something new.
Don't be afraid to move.
Don't be afraid to move.
I almost glossed over that.
And don't.
Like I was thinking like move and shake, but
new.
Don't be afraid. I love that. That's a good start.
And maybe that doesn't mean you got to move across the country.
Sure.
Maybe it means you got to move your way of thinking.
Yep, I like it.
Good. Kristen.
I would say believe in your dreams, but then like have confidence
Yeah.
in those dreams. Yeah.
Good. And Ryan.
Oh boy. So, if you believe in something, go after it. Be driven. Put your whole heart into it, and you'll be successful.
All right. That's a good start, Dave.
It's a good start.
Don't you think? All right, marketing. How do they find you one more time?
RedStarNE.com.
Perfect. Thanks, guys, so much for coming over and hanging out. Hopefully you had a good time.
I did.
It's fun.
Got to hang out with us in studio. They're always so much more fun when we can interact across the table from each other. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Dave? Time to send them out?
Yeah.
All right, listeners, until next time, have a good one.